Hello, everybody. This is Art Persico. This is a re-recording of the December 15th SF Gray Panther monthly meeting. I forgot to hit the record button, so we're making it up. That's why you're only seeing a couple of people on this Zoom. So here we go. Thank you for joining us for this December 15th SF Gray Panther monthly meeting, which we're going to dedicate to two San Francisco activists, the late Denise Deanne and Don Beckler. I'll just want to give you an overview of what we're going to be doing during the meeting. First, the dedication to Denise and Don, and then we're going to have a look back slideshow narrated by Michael Lyon, Gray Panther history starting in the year 2000, and then we'll talk about the past year. We'll have a discussion about the last year, the history of the Gray Panthers, and then a discussion about what we might be doing in the future in this coming year. We'll take a break, and then there will be a short video presentation from Josh Kornbluth in his Citizen Brain series on loneliness. Then a short oral presentation by Ann Kolochidis, a fellow SF Gray Panther board member, with resources on combating loneliness. And finally, we're going to have a discussion about how we all deal with the loneliness that's created and exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And now, Michael Lyon will say a few words about Denise Deanne.
Hi. So Denise was a moving activist in San Francisco on the issue of workers, environmentalism, racism, and women's issues. And she was in a leadership in SEIU 400, National Organization for Women, San Francisco Tomorrow, the Harvey Milk Demo Club, the San Francisco Labor Council, and of course, San Francisco Gray Panthers, both as a board member and a treasurer. In Gray Panthers, she was a frequent and dependable contributor to our newsletters, and you never knew what she was going to write about. I remember she wrote a scathing article when Obama had decided to scale down the size of nuclear weapons so they could actually be used in combat. She was constantly urging Gray Panthers to be more supportive of labor and workers' issues, particularly public workers, and she got us all to distribute leaflets supporting the striking BART workers when they were under such attack by the boss's press. She was passionate about conservatism and environmentalism, and she could be rather abrasive on this issue, but she could surprise you on that too. I remember one time we were in Costco buying food for a Gray Panthers holiday party, and she saw a woman with a whole cart of bottled water. She said, "I'm going to go over and tell that woman she shouldn't be buying bottled water and why." I implored her not to do that, but she insisted that she was going to do it. I desperately had to pee, and I couldn't wait any longer. But I ran back from the bathroom expecting to see her shouting and being handcuffed by the police. But when I got back, I saw the other woman had her wallet out and she was showing Denise pictures of her grandchildren. You just never knew with her. Denise grew up in Brooklyn in the 1930s, and she was in the Army in the 1950s in a desk job. She used to say that she typed her way across Europe. In San Francisco, she worked in what became the Department of Human Resources, and she was on the SEIU 400 shop steward, a newspaper editor, and an executive board member. After the Gray Panthers couldn't afford an office anymore, we used to meet at her house to assemble the newsletter and get it ready for the post office. And we sometimes had some hilarious kinds of things trying to find missing pages and things like that. it was it was very enjoyable in retrospect. I'm going to miss her. That's all.
And now I'm going to say a few words about Don Beckler. These were written by fellow board member Ellen Yoshitsugu. We paid tribute to Don Beckler, a longtime San Francisco activist who passed away on October 24th of natural causes. Don was born in Detroit, attended high school and college in East LA. During the Vietnam War, he tried to enlist, telling recruiters, "I'm a socialist, I'm going to organize the troops." They rejected him. He worked in and was a union leader at both United Airlines and at Westinghouse Defense Plant. We remember him best for his total personal commitment to the fight for single-payer health care. He was a leader in the 1994 ballot initiative for California statewide single payer, and following that, he continued to build a people-centered movement right up until his passing. Don was an extraordinary activist known and loved for his deep understanding of health policy and politics. We'd say, ask Don, he'll know. His personal touch as a carefully built relationships with many individuals. So many of us remember his statement, "You are great," and Don's notes on newsletters that contained that statement. His vision of grassroots power, such as we need 5 million committed voters in California to pass a bill on single payer. His mailing parties and banner holding demonstrations, as well as his annual backpacking trips to Yellowstone National Park. Even his vacations served the cause that he was so dedicated to. Through his work, he has taught us so much about what it means to really fight for something and how to do it. Now we're going to move on to the slideshow of SF Gray Panthers history. And to handle the first couple of decades of this century, Michael Lyon, former convener and current member of the board of directors of the SF Gray Panthers.
Thank you, Art. Let me screen share. Hello and good afternoon. This slideshow will highlight some of the San Francisco Gray Panthers activities over the last 20 years. In response to the 9/11 attacks, George Bush pushed the Patriot Act, arguably the worst attack on civil liberties in the last 100 years. Here are some of the things that the Patriot Act did. It was really awful. We joined huge numbers of other groups in responding to this. All South Asians, meaning Muslims, were required to report to register at the Immigration Service building. Many of them never came out. This was us at the Immigration Center in San Francisco. In 2004, the U.S. invaded Afghanistan. Early on, we published shocking pictures and reports of torture of military combatants and their transport to Guantanamo Bay. People were downloading these pictures from our website for years afterwards. In 2004, the U.S. also invaded Iraq, the second war to control oil. Hundreds of thousands marched in the U.S. and around the world against the war. Gray Panthers were there. The ILWU struck some shipping lines against job cuts at the Port of Oakland. The police fired at the picket lines with wooden bullets. The ILU responded by shutting down the entire port, and then they joined the march against the war. Safeway tried to cut the wages of starting workers, and the union struck. Gray Panthers were there saying, yes, age and youth together. The bosses also rolled out racists during this time. Michelle Malkin, a TV personality who denied the Holocaust and said slaves were happy, tried to speak at UC Berkeley. Gray Panthers joined hundreds to shout her down. And now we had a transition. In 2005, George Bush tried to privatize Social Security, which he said was in a crisis. Gray Panthers responded. We organized and led a march of thousands through San Francisco. It was the start of the Hands Off Social Security Coalition. We said no to privatizing, no benefit cuts, scrap the cap and make the rich pay their share, and no compromises. The movement spread to other organizations. Gray Panthers and CARA had demonstrations at the offices of Representative Richard Pombo from Stockton. Pombo hated Social Security. We went there so often that he ended up hiding in his truck when he saw us coming. CARA brought people from all over Northern California to Pombo's office. The same thing was happening all over the country. Eventually, Bush and his austerity hawks gave up and decided they'd try again some other time. Gray Panthers also marched against all of the wars in the Middle East. Year after year, Nancy Pelosi voted funds for the Mideast war and refused to meet with her constituents in San Francisco to defend her actions. Finally, she was forced to have a town hall meeting. We were there. We also supported school bus drivers in Massachusetts who struck against war cutbacks. And we stood up against Bechtel's war profits. When Medicare introduced their awful Medicare Part D drug program, we demonstrated at Medicare headquarters. We collected thousands of signatures against Medicare Part D. Then there was an even worse outrage. Pharma, the drug makers who were making money hand over fist with their overpriced drugs, decided to hold their national convention in San Francisco. We were there. We sang outside, "Say no to the donut hole, pharma go to hell." We kept it up at the pharma convention through torrential rains. Gray Panthers also fought against environmental racism, joining with Green Action. And finally, in the end, we won. PG&E decided to close their Hunters Point power plants. Our next big battle was against anti-immigrant racism and HR 4437. HR 4437 spawned a huge fight back. May Day 2006 saw the biggest San Francisco demonstrations ever. Market Street was packed as far as the eye could see. And if you look in this photograph here, you can see the block after block. About 10 blocks going back to the Ferry Building were just packed with people, as you can see over here. Gray Panthers were there in those demonstrations, and we were not only against HR 4437, we were also against the racist Bracero guest worker plan, and we were against forcing undocumented immigrants into the Army in order to be able to get green cards. We led chants of "Queremos un mundo sin fronteras." We want a world without borders. And that chant spread throughout the march for blocks away. Teachers went on a hunger strike to the point where they needed wheelchairs to be in the march. Our next battle was fighting gentrification and evictions in the Bayview. And in the last 2 years, the Gray Panthers has had a new leadership, which Art will talk about.
Thank you, Michael. This slide shows some of the campaigns we've participated in this past year. The convener of the Gray Panthers in San Francisco communicates with the membership through email blasts, as Michael has called them, what we're now calling them calls to action or prowling and growling. Fellow board members, Michael, Ellen, and I have worked on putting these out in connection with the SF Gray Panther calendar. And these are 3 examples. Next slide, please. Many of you probably recognize this poster. It was the ballot measure that the SF Gray Panthers worked along with groups like the California Alliance for Retired Americans to qualify for the ballot. In the first month of this past year, we were doing getting signups each weekend to get it qualified for the ballot. Next slide. This is another one of those calls to action in which we joined another coalition. It was organized by a national coalition we just plugged into and helped, but it put pressure on Congress as one of the many grassroots efforts that collectively helped get the CARES Act passed into law for economic assistance to people all over the country just after the coronavirus pandemic hit. And it also put pressure to help get the HEROES Act passed in the House. But of course, that was not acted on by the US Senate, and they're still negotiating or waiting for a signature today. Next slide. This slide reflects our activism around the California budget battle, in which there was the threat by the governor and the legislature to cut programs for the aged and disabled. Once again, we joined with other organizations, in this case, again, CARA, and in addition, Senior Disability Action, to put pressure on the legislature and the governor to not cut budget items that were essential to the survival of elders and disabled communities in California. Next slide. This represents an effort in which I was more directly involved in. It was a rally and march for democracy that was initiated by a small group of people out of the Unitarian Center in San Francisco. And I worked especially with generating labor turnout when there was a lot of concern about what would happen with our election. This is back on October 24th. It culminated in this march and rally. Next slide. These photos here reflect a national day of action that SEIU and others organized that also involved calls for racial justice and support for Black Lives Matter. The national nurses, the SEIU represents a lot of nursing home workers, and so they were primary organizers around this, but we were involved as well. There was a site of activism at Civic Center, and also, as the next slide shows, next, in the lower left-hand corner, there was a nursing home in Oakland where we appeared. This other photos in this set of slides show on the upper left-hand corner the weekend before the election, a demonstration focused on Nancy Pelosi to put pressure on her to support single-payer health care, which she has not supported. Upper right-hand corner showed Gray Panthers marching with youth against climate change. And the lower right-hand photo shows a demonstration at the site of City College of San Francisco, Fort Mason campus, which was threatened with closure. And I spoke there, but it indeed did get closed. And this is an ongoing battle that the SF Gray Panthers are engaged in to protect City College of San Francisco in an effort to keep it a community college and not have it be merely a junior college. Next slide. Every year in February, we have developed a tradition of having a program focused around Paul Robeson and justice for African Americans. This was the one we had last year, and we will do it again this year. And because of all the national uproar over police killings of African Americans and sadness and the thirst for justice, we hope to have an even more intense program on that this coming February. Next slide. Back in 2019, we did a program on Bayard Rustin. We screened a film when we were still meeting in person. That was a documentary about his role in being a right-hand man to Martin Luther King Jr. And last August, we celebrated the 100th birthday of Maggie Kuhn. She would have been 100 if she had lived that long in 2019, or was that 2018? Next slide. Tim Redmond is a frequent speaker because of his knowledge of San Francisco politics, and he spoke about the significance of the November 19th election. Again, we have an annual event represented in the lower right-hand corner by the slide showing the photo of the action in front of the City Hall to read the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which we did again this year, except we did it on Zoom, of course. And that was just earlier this past month. Next slide. City College of San Francisco, as I mentioned before, is one of the priority issues of the SF Gray Panthers. And we hope to keep fighting for that and keeping it a resource for all San Franciscans. Deeply affordable housing is another issue we care deeply about, and that's been carried on this year with programs. And we'd had a program early last year on working with youth on climate change. Next slide. We all realize what happened this past year with COVID, sadly, and the SF Gray Panthers adjusted like everybody else to have meetings on Zoom. And we've just kept our meetings going that way, as many other organizations have. Next slide. City College was another one we've mentioned and continued to fight. Next slide. Fighting, as Michael did, he represented in his earlier slides about fighting for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We had a program with 3 Gray Panther networks: Berkeley, East Bay, Long Beach, and San Francisco, which also featured John Avalos as well as Jody Reed. Next slide. Here's one that represents an effort that Michael Lyon played a large role in, the alliance to close the Hall of Justice in San Francisco. That meeting also had an hour on that helped people understand what financial resources are available to them during the COVID crisis. We had a representative from the office of Phil Ting. Next slide. In September, we focused on the crisis in the nursing homes and had a great panel of speakers, including Jody Reed, Pat McGinnis of Canner, which is one of the foremost organizations that fights for the legal rights of nursing home patients and their families, and also featured Marilyn Albert, a retired nurse who's been very active on this issue. This program can be accessed on the Gray Panther website. There's a recording of that in addition to other programs since September. Next slide. One of those other programs was Fighting Fascism in October, featuring our own Michael Lyon and Norman Solomon, Margaret Flowers, and George Wright, all great speakers on different approaches to fighting fascism. Once again, available on the SF Gray Panther website. That Zoom can be seen and heard by clicking on links there. Next slide. In November, we had another great program, again featuring Tim Redmond, and this time featuring Henny Kelly, who is California Alliance for Retired Americans Legislative Director, and Bill Fletcher, who often is a commentator heard on KPFA on issues of labor and racism. That's another one you can access on our website. Next slide. And then just earlier this month, we had once again, our annual public reading of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We focused in on food and had Mary Risley of Food Runners talking about that. And we also focused in on housing. Sarah Short, who was active in fighting to keep homeless in the hotels, which is an ongoing battle, so they won't be thrown out in the streets. That also can be accessed on the SF Gray Panther website. So that concludes our slideshow. And as we did live and in person at our, well, in person on Zoom on December 15th, I want to make a pitch to you to join the Gray Panthers. If you're not already a member, please pay your dues, which are suggested to be $30 a month, $30 a year, excuse me. And if you'd like to have a greater role in the SF Gray Panthers, join our board. And some of the reasons to do that are for the pure joy of participating in a 50-year-old organization with a rich history of elder outrage combined with the participation of youth and their idealism and activism. Because after all, we in the Gray Panthers believe that youth and age can make change together. Join us because we want to continue the tradition of putting on great forums, and we'll get back in the streets as the COVID crisis allows. We also have an informal alliance of California Gray Panthers, other networks, as I mentioned, Berkeley, East Bay, one network, Long Beach, another network, and San Francisco, and now the new Gray Panther network in Santa Barbara that's emerging. And then we also are able to have a national presence through the National Council of Gray Panther Networks. They have two committees that meet monthly. One is the Issues Committee, and the other is the National Council of Gray Panther Networks Senior Housing Subcommittee, which has focused on the nursing homes and also affordable, accessible housing. And in addition, we have worked on mainly as the California Gray Panthers, the issue of the Governor's Commission on Aging. When you join the Gray Panthers, you're also automatically a member of California Alliance for Retired Americans, which is a dynamic, well-organized statewide organization that advocates for the elderly and disabled in our state legislature. Also, everyone who's an SF Gray Panther is automatically affiliated with the Healthy California Now, a statewide coalition committed to Medicare for all. And as I said, we would love to have your participation as a member, as a board member. And if you want to do that, please go to our website and or contact me, Art Persico, by calling me at 650-228-4188, 650-228-4188, or emailing me at artpersico@gmail.com. Or you can find the email address for the SF Gray Panthers on the website. Anybody who joins now will get a free SF Gray Panthers button. And that concludes this half of the program. There is another segment that was recorded live during our Zoom on December 15th, and it picks up with the discussion with Bernie Choden making some remarks. So I hope you stay tuned for that. Thank you.
What needs to be done, our good friends and our so-called elected employees have emasculated planning law. We no longer mandate, in effect, corrective action, what we've analyzed to be wrong. We no longer have. It's been removed from the back.
Especially affordable housing.
Affordable housing, employing, equity. We now have criminal complicity by our officials burning up forests. In effect, that should be public land.
Art just said something good about law versus aspiration. And I think what Bernie and I really want to have happen is to re-strengthen the state law so that when a jurisdiction makes a housing element or does a housing as part of its general plan, it's not just a wish list, it's actually an enforceable action. It used to be so in the state law, and that needs to be restored.
What we have instead is pleas for moratoriums on renters, in effect, which means not a goddamn thing. It's posturing. We need to tell our elected officials what the hell to do. The second thing we need to do is we are a county. We are unique in the state of California. We do not have representation on our regional planning. We are required to have 2 members of the Board of Supervisors. We do not have representation. We do not act as a county. We are overseen by, in effect, a funding agency called MTC, which tells 2/3 of our city what they should do for the environment with no appeal, no appeal. We don't have representation, and our elected employees do nothing about it. So we elect people and we don't follow up on what they should be doing.
Thank you, Bernie and
By the
Lois.
way, am a former Army medic a long time ago.
Thanks for your service. Are there any other responses to that, or any other comments or questions about the slideshow, or what the Gray Panthers should be doing next year? Marilee?
Thank you, Art. My concern in the group that I'm with, and I'm also working with the HEAT group at City College, Higher Education Action Team, who are very concerned. That group is very concerned about the downsizing of the college. But what happened with Fort Mason, as you said, I could catch people up. Yes, it is no longer a campus, an art campus for City College. In the efforts to downsize the college and to turn it into a junior college and take away its status as a community college. In doing that, they disrupted and actually reduced the OLAD, older adults program, down to maybe 3 classes, which was at one time 58. And those classes were spread throughout the city of San Francisco. Now they no longer exist. And I think it was Pat, who I hope I got that name right, Pat, who brought that up in the beginning of the meeting. And my concern is this: when COVID is under control, then where are seniors going to go? I mean, that's why I was very happy to be invited to this meeting. But my concern is, where are they going to go? What is going to be available for them to do that was once there for them through the OLAD program? Now, what they've done at City College is to take the monies coming from the state for the OLAD program, and they're using it for other programs, the general fund, whatever. But those funds were earmarked for senior programs, and they are now using those funds, and will use them for another, I don't know, at least another full year. So that's my concern. This whole concept of lifelong learning just evaporated in San Francisco. It's just no longer there. So anyway, I just really would like to see some help from different organizations, including the Gray Panthers, including OWL, including CARA, to say this is not right. So anyway, I'm very anxious to see the second part of this program and use this concept about loneliness. Why should seniors be stuck at home? They should be actively involved in community situations. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marilee. I'll just say something very quickly. We're going to have to take a break pretty soon and start the second hour of our program. And there'll be another chance for discussion, questions and comments after in the second hour. But we would love to work with you. And we are very committed to maintaining City College as a community college. So if you will work with us, we would be very happy.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I got it.
Can I add something, Art?
Go ahead, Ann. Yeah.
Hi. Well, you know, Maggie Kuhn, the issues, Social Security and Medicare, you know, you'd think we'd have that solved by now because it's been a Gray Panthers, CARA, and everyone else. They're just legacy issues that are going to be with us, I guess, forever. And so it's just interesting to see that, you know, how many years later it's, you know, we still have to keep after the same issues of Social Security and Medicare as an underlying structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple new people, maybe
Okay.
3.
Let's see. I'll try. If you have arrived in the last, after we did our introductions, you go ahead, introduce yourself in with one sentence or 2 at the most, because we're coming up on a break and we'll start the second half pretty soon. Is there anybody who has not introduced themselves that would like to do so at this time?
Yeah, my name is Mo Shure. Thanks, Art, for inviting me to this. I'm really interested in the second half, especially.
Okay. Thank you, Mo. Anybody else who has not had a chance to introduce himself and wants to say something? If not, I just want to say that as I was listening to the comments that were made, just now by several people, one of the things I'm very concerned about in addition to nursing homes is that the economic downturn that it seems that we may be facing as the economy is severely impacted by COVID shutting down so much of the economy. And it could be hard times ahead, but on the bright side, San Francisco has a lot of wealth. Unfortunately, it's concentrated in the bank accounts of like maybe 75 billionaires. We have about half the billionaires in California, and there's apparently, or is it the United States? Anyway, we have a huge concentration of wealth in San Francisco, and we need to figure out how to reallocate wealth so that there are not people in castles walking past the wreckage of a society every day. I don't know how they can live with themselves. Today's Chronicle had a little column about how, in the second section about Bay Area, how that entrepreneurs and wealthy people maybe should think about donating. I think we may have to go beyond that. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to say before the break is that as I said, we would love to have you all as Gray Panthers. And if you want to join the Gray Panthers, you can just put your name and contact information in the chat, or contact me by calling me, Art Persico, 650-228-4188, 650-228-4188. I think Anne has a PayPal method of joining she could tell us about. I wanted to say just a little bit about why I'm excited to be a Gray Panther and why you should be too. If you aren't, hope you join. There are many reasons to join us. For the pure joy of participating in a 50-year-old organization with a rich history of elder outrage combined with youthful idealism and activism. It's pursuing both youth and age in action. We've been putting on great forums this year, as you've seen. We have allied with other Gray Panther networks and have an informal collaboration that's the California Gray Panthers to deal with statewide issues. We also volunteer with other Gray Panther networks around the country through the National Council of Gray Panther Networks Issues Committee and the Senior Housing Subcommittee. That latter one has been dealing with nursing home issues. Everyone who's an SF Gray Panther is automatically also a member of CARA, which gives you access to a very well-organized statewide organization that advocates for the elderly and disabled. Everyone who's an SF Gray Panther is automatically affiliated with Healthy California Now, a statewide organization committed to Medicare for all. So please consider joining. We have an optional $30 donation for membership, and but if affordability is a problem, don't worry about it. And Anne, do you have anything to add about the PayPal method of joining the Gray Panthers?
I put the link in the chat box.
Thank you very much. And we're now going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll hopefully be able to watch a video. It's about 10 minutes from Josh Kornbluth on loneliness, and then we'll have some tips from Anne and resources and a final discussion before 3 o'clock. So it's 2:02 now. Should we come back at 2:07? Okay, thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
You guys are very funny. Hello. I read about that 2 billionaire already moved out of California. They flee away from. Larry Ellison from Oracle and Elon Musk from Tesla. Elon Musk went to Texas and Larry went to Hawaii.
I've got to go get an electrical cord.
Art,
Yes.
I put a piece in the chat about Scott Wiener asking for input on housing. So a chance for people to give him a piece of their mind.
Great. Okay, it's 2:07. I think I'm gonna start this video, and as people hear it, they'll probably come back. And
Can we introduce it first? Art, may I introduce it?
yes, you may. Go ahead.
Okay, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the second part of our San Francisco Gray Panthers December meeting. Many people in the Bay Area probably remember Josh Kornbluth, who got his start performing in places like the Marsh in Berkeley and San Francisco, autobiographical monologues for theater audiences. And later, he had some award-winning shows such as Red Diaper Baby and Haiku Tunnel. Since January of 2017, he's been an Atlantic Fellow for Equity in Brain Health at the Global Brain Health Institute and produces this series, Citizen Brain, a video series connecting brain health and social justice. So due to the highly unusual circumstances that we've been in this year, we thought it would be a great opportunity to discuss sort of something that we're all experiencing. And so thank you, take it away, Art.
Okay.
Why does it hurt so much to feel lonely? And what can we do about it? Scientists are giving us some exciting answers with the help of a tiny worm and a truly unpopular rodent. The worm is called C. elegans, also known as the roundworm. But who wants to say roundworm when you can say C. elegans? You can find it in your garden's compost heap, happily munching on rotting vegetables and such. The rodent is the prairie vole, an adorable little critter. You can also find it in your garden, which chances are it is cheerfully destroying. These two small creatures are helping scientists unlock the mysteries behind one of the worst afflictions a human being can have, loneliness. And make no mistake, loneliness is a big deal. It can make us sick. It can make us age faster. It can even kill us. A recent study by Carla Parasinotto at UCSF showed that seniors who were lonely were more likely to get sick or to die than those with happy social lives. Loneliness can disturb our sleep. It can trigger depression. It can increase our risk of getting Alzheimer's disease. It runs rampant through society, a health crisis, an epidemic. But we tend not to talk about it because quite often we feel ashamed that we're lonely. We think it means that we are weak, that we're losers. But loneliness doesn't mean those things at all. What loneliness really means is that we're human. Human beings are super social. Since the very earliest hunter-gatherers, we've thrived because we like to do things together. But what happens if I wander off from my group? Suddenly, I'm more vulnerable, and the group is more vulnerable as well. That's where loneliness comes to the rescue. Loneliness is a kind of pain, an emotional pain, that we can start to feel when we're separated from those we care about. It's a message from our brain telling us that we're in danger. Among early humans, the ones who felt the emotional pain of loneliness when they strayed off from the tribe were the ones most likely to live long enough to reproduce and pass along their genes. The ones who didn't get lonely, well, you know, tiger attack. So loneliness is great, right? Well, yeah, as long as we just experience it for a short period of time when the emotional pain is acute. The problem is when we stay lonely. When the emotional pain becomes chronic, our neural wiring is still pretty much the same as it was back when we were hunter-gatherers. It wasn't designed to deal with modern life, when families are much less likely to stay together, when modern transportation can whisk us thousands of miles away from the folks we grew up with, when technology like the internet can make us feel like we're more in touch than we really are. That's when we need to fight loneliness. And to fight it, we need to understand it, which is where our worms come in. First, let's just get one thing out of the way. Is there a way to tell if a roundworm is truly lonely?
No, I don't think that we could say that a roundworm is lonely. It's a human construct, really, the whole idea of loneliness.
But we can tell if it prefers hanging out with its fellow roundworms, dwelling, or getting away from them, roaming. And we can figure out what's going on in its nervous system at all times because compared to us, C. elegans are very simple. Like humans have about 86 billion neurons, which makes things really complicated. On the other hand, C. elegans have 302. Okay, just 302 neurons, maybe 303 on a good day. So they're much easier to study.
They're living, behaving animals. And even though they can't, sing an opera or write a novel, they can do fairly sophisticated maneuvers like learn new memories or forage for food. They have social interactions with one another.
Yet another cool thing about these worms, they're transparent. So researchers can actually see what's going on inside them. As a result of all these cool qualities, C. elegans have been crucial in the development of drugs to fight cancer and all kinds of other amazing advances, including new discoveries in the study of loneliness.
When they have normal amounts of some certain chemicals, they have normal amounts of social interaction and normal amounts of time spent dwelling versus exploring. The chemicals that control that, serotonin, is the exact same chemical in humans that regulates mood.
So thanks to C. elegans, we can see a possible link between social isolation and mood disorders like depression. And what C. elegans can't tell us about loneliness, maybe prairie voles can.
What makes, at least the voles that we study, which are prairie voles, exceptional, is that prairie voles belong to about 4%, the population of about 4% of mammals that are socially monogamous.
You have the prairie voles and they mate for life, like they meet early on, I assume, and I guess they would meet in a garden or something.
Or prairie.
Or prairie, right? Prairie voles. You know, you have to wake up really early to get something past me. So you have your prairie voles, and they tend to mate for life. And then you have, I believe, the montane
Montane or meadow voles.
montane, and both of those are kinds of voles are promiscuous.
Yeah, those animals tend to live more in social isolation. So they don't really stick around in the way that prairie voles do for both of them to take care of the offspring and then to sort of live in these family units. So they sort of wander off and then they've met another female and they go on to mate with them.
Just like with us humans, when prairie voles become isolated from those they care about, they can experience the pain of social loss that we call loneliness. And just like with us, the resulting stress can do serious damage, especially in the brain. What's causing all these changes?
So you've probably heard of cortisol. So that is definitely a hormone that we think and we know correlates with stress in humans. The hormone version of that in voles is also something that we can look for in the blood and what's circulating in the animals when we put them under social stress.
So thanks to prairie voles, researchers are learning tons about loneliness in the brain. But in order to combat the human blight of loneliness, we're also going to have to go outside the lab. There was a terrific study in Ireland that paired isolated and lonely older adults with volunteers who were also elderly. After a series of regular visits by these volunteers, the subjects tended to become less lonely. And as a bonus, the volunteers tended to become less lonely as well. That study's principal investigator, Dr. Brian Lawler, points out that healthcare professionals and policymakers need to make treating loneliness a priority.
We know about the health risks of smoking and the health risks of being overweight. And there are public health policies about smoking and weight, obesity. But the risk of dying from loneliness and isolation is about the same as light cigarette smoking. And it's probably greater than obesity, but we don't have a public health approach or policy around loneliness. So it's not just about examining the chest or examining the heart, it's understanding the person. It's listening to the person and asking the right questions. And as I say, are you lonely? Who are the most important people in your life? You learn an awful lot very quickly from those two questions.
By treating everyone with kindness and consideration, even if just for a moment, we can vastly improve their quality of life and our own. Human civilizations can be beautiful, but they can truly thrive only when everyone is seen and heard, when all voices are counted. And for that to happen, no one can be left to suffer in isolation. And if we're successful in this great coming together, we'll have these wonderful researchers to thank, along, of course, with their brilliant animal collaborators. A few things to keep in mind as we strive for a less lonely future. Loneliness is not the same thing as being alone. Someone can be quite happy while spending some alone time, and also can be miserably lonely even when surrounded by others. There's always been a tension between rugged individualism and doing stuff together for the common good. Maybe it would be cool for us to lean a bit more into the doing stuff together side of things. We all get lonely now and then. It's natural, it's even necessary. A reminder from generations before that we need one another. But when that loneliness lingers on and on, that's when it's time for some meaningful social contact. Come to think of it, I'm starting to feel kind of lonely now. Hey, where are you going? Come back. Thanks. I just wanted us to have this little extra bit of dwelling time.
Wow. Well, what did you think? Are you,
He is quite funny.
what?
quite fun.
He's funny. He's funny down to his bones. I think he's, yeah. Okay.
He
So
give the reason why we study the walls because it's transparent and fewer neurons.
Sylvia, I'm going to mute you because there's some excess, like it's there's some sort of sound thing happening.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Anyway, okay, we got Deecha coming in. We have somebody coming in, and right now, what we're going to do is we're going to hear from Ann Kolachitis. She's got some tips and resources to share with us, and then we're going to have a discussion. And feel free to put anything you want in the chat that's relevant to our being here today. So Ann, you can do either I'd say the resource guide first, wouldn't you?
Yeah, look, can you put that on the screen? Thanks.
Oh, okay. Thanks for reminding me.
Thanks, yeah.
We find it.
I put this together. We've had a couple of resource guides this year for COVID. Our fellow board member, Matt Holtz, did a financial resources. That was, I don't know, March or April. When was that, Matt?
Yeah, sometime around there. Yeah, early on.
And then we did a survey. Some of you may recall getting a phone call from, a checking call, see how people were doing. It was more like, how are you getting what you need in COVID? And we had some resources then. And that was very interesting because I found that people really did pretty much, transportation was a big matter that people were having trouble with, but all in all, many of the Gray Panthers that we talked to were managing to get what they needed, and that was really good to know. So now this is resources to help with isolation. What do you think, Art?
Well, I'm finding your email. I thought I had it in my doc, so I'll get it up there as soon as I can.
Okay, just sort of while I'm talking, it's kind of easier to see it, but I'll start.
Sure.
I think that my number one resource for isolation, of course, is the Institute on Aging's Warm Line, which is associated with the Friendship Line. It's a 24-hour crisis line, so that and also a warm line for non-emergency support calls during the regular hours of 7 to 8:30. And why I think this 7 a.m. to 8:30, and why I think this is so important, because it's someone that's actually speaking to you. And I'm going to put this document in the chat box where you can click on it and download it directly to your computer, and feel free to share it because you might know someone who could use these resources. Number two, I included a research article called exercise reduces loneliness in seniors. So I included that article, and also I looked, and YMCA 360 offers free exercise classes. You do not need to be a member, and I looked at them. I linked you on this resource guide to the senior section, but they have many classes and they look really good. San Francisco YMCA also has classes, but you need to be a member. And one of those classes, the one for seniors, is taught by the dance instructor from City College, Jean Marie Hughes, is teaching that class. But again, you have to be a member of the Y to access those classes. Number three is AARP's Guide to Best Practices for Virtual Volunteering. So, and I'm sure that a lot of us are doing that, like right now, we're doing a virtual volunteering. So that guide is available. Number four, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Community Living Campaign, and they have a new COVID-19 resource page, a lot of things devoted to isolation and loneliness. They have I encourage you to give yourself a tour of the Community Living Campaign, their website. There's just so much good stuff. A lot of it is available and their activities are available either on Zoom, on the internet, or by phone, which for so many seniors, haven't quite made that jump to Zoom. Although the next one is to get comfortable with Zoom. And the Community Living Campaign offers a Zoom helpline every Tuesday by phone or internet. And I maybe encourage, I know none of you need that kind of help, but maybe encourage your friends, because I notice that I remember, maybe people have the same experience as me, that there were, back when computers were new, they would crash, or you could touch a button, you'd just be afraid to touch anything. And things have changed so much, but I still have that kind of like hesitancy to try something new on the computer. And so, but Zoom has made things so easy that I think people just need to get a little, as you know, a little bit of experience with it. The next is Covia. This resource was offered to me by Catlin Morgan, who many of you know at Institute on Aging. She's there now, but she's been all around. And she said she really likes this Covia classes called Well Connected. You may have heard of Senior Center Without Walls. This is a different iteration of that, but I included their whole catalog for last semester. They have 2 social activism classes, groups or classes, plus hundreds of discussion groups and classes. So their catalog is on this list. And then of course, number 7, you can join the Gray Panther Network and channel your outrage into action with us. Number 8, consider serving on the board of the San Francisco Gray Panthers. The nominations are now open. And I put a couple additional resources at the bottom. District supervisors their offices are the best place to get actual in time, up-to-date information about what's the resources available in your own area. So the list is there. And United Way is teaming up with the IRS to offer free tax preparation for those who financially qualify. So let me add this file, and what I would suggest, you can save the chat box, but what I would suggest you do is just click on this when I add it, and you'll have it. And please share it with.
We'll save the chat too, so anybody who wants it and doesn't get it for themselves, you can contact us and we'll send it to you.
I'll put it in both PDF and Word. There's one.
And then, in addition to the resources that Ann mentioned, we could, share ideas. If you have an idea on how to avert loneliness that you found to be successful, you could put it in the chat. We could brainstorm on things. What part of the discussion could be ideas that work for you, how you're feeling these days, how you overcome loneliness, or if you have, if you haven't overcome it, talk about, how that is. That's not always easy to share in a public setting, but you're among friends here. We're all, that's the topic. So
we could get some people who came in to say hello and introduce
good
themselves.
idea.
Deecha, Denise, Lotus, and I don't know who else. Let's see. Had we heard from
a few people who came in? Anybody who came in who hasn't had a chance to say who they are and maybe one sentence about yourself, feel free to raise your hand or just go for it. Lotus, I muted you.
Hello, Art, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Denise. I'm not at home, so I'm not on photo or video, but I wanted to say some of these resources, like Adult Protective Service, when I called them about a housing concern, they just called my landlord and believed them and didn't investigate it's happened to me more than once, and supervisors just rubber stamp first line people. So there's some elder issues in some of the resources people use to reach out. But anyway, thank you for the meeting, and I'll let somebody else introduce themselves.
Sure. Thanks, Denise. Who else?
Thanks, Art.
Well, can you hear me? This is Deecha.
Oh, hi, Deecha.
Hi. I really don't have anything to contribute to that because I'm lost in technology. I'm overwhelmed by it, and I find it hard. I don't feel loneliness. I feel when I come out of it, I feel desperate to do all the things I haven't done that I should have done. So I'm just working on getting my control of my attention back out of the stuff, out of the screen and the radio and the magazines, and it's just pouring in on me. And I have the problem that I think a lot of people have, is struggling for the truth. I'm looking for it. And I'm not, it's quite ephemeral. I think I conclude that the truth is a feeling rather than a fact anyway. Oh, and we have, the Fight Truth Decay buttons.
Oh, we do, yeah. We also have the Gray Panther buttons. I think they're free for anybody that joins. Maybe I don't know how many Truth Decay buttons we have, but we have lots of SF Gray Panther buttons. What was our pitch on the buttons? And can you remind me, was it free or $5? I can't remember.
Art, that's up to you.
Okay, they're free.
It actually cost, I tried to put it in the regular mail, but it pretty much costs $3.50 just to mail it, which is the issue.
But if people join the Gray Panthers, they'll get a button. And Deecha, thanks for sharing, huh?
Oh, sorry, nothing, go ahead.
Oh, I just was gonna say, thanks for sharing how you're feeling and doing.
Well, you're welcome. Felt good to unload, but it doesn't make any difference. I'm still, in fact, talking to this screen and pretending you're people.
We are people. We're just an intermediary device. But
yeah.
But I know, because sometimes after you've been on the screen, you do feel weird a little bit, don't you?
Well,
anybody else?
Lost, just without any direction at all, just floating in the universe somewhere.
Yeah, there's some interesting neurology involved. I don't claim to be an expert, but there's a book about the impact of being online on people, and that if in terms of impacting your ability to read long form and concentrate, and it takes like reading every day for maybe 20 days or something like that to get back your ability to read long form when you've been spending too much time on screens. It's not healthy. It changes your brain, I believe. Just like reading changed the brain. Now we're in a new era of technology changing the brain. Anybody else?
Art, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It has to do with technology and isolation. I have a new phone, and I went from a flip phone to a smartphone, and oh my gosh. I've been locked out twice because where I stay, I have to phone up. I couldn't call emergency for somebody recently because, my phone doesn't know my fingerprint, and I knew the code, and it says give you a code, and I couldn't find a number screen. And anyway, it's terrifying. And the people that bought it, they don't teach this. And I have taken some classes with City College, and that person, whoa. She have a learning disorder, and she said it's hard to be gracious to you. She's being paid to teach the class. Anyway, and so my other teacher was going on multiple campuses, and so she leaves early and arrives late, and can't really talk to her too much. So anyway, if anybody has any leads on bridging this digital divide and technology challenged people, because I'm trained in philosophy and psychology and stuff. And anyway, if anybody has any leads on classes to learn a smartphone, and it has evidence for a legal thing, so I can't erase messages, so I'm hard to reach because messages are full. But anyway, yes, if anybody has any leads on, because I knew otherwise, there's places, but now there's not happening, like senior disability has classes and stuff. But anyway, I'd love to learn. I need to learn this phone so I can, function. Thanks.
I understand it being difficult. I have one that my daughter gave me, and I am not in control of it at all. And I weird things sometimes happen, and I just keep poking and succeed or give up. I understand that problem. I don't know. I think the way to learn it is side by side with someone who. Maybe there's a way to have somebody else watching your phone while you're working on it, like being plugged in, and then help helping you by telling you the next things to do?
I would think if you can be on Zoom with some other person and you're actually, you're getting the visual image.
Oh.
You would be able to hold the phone up to the camera and say, well, here's what it looks like now.
It's totally embarrassing. My son has a degree in engineering, and his parents, fairly recently learned how to reprogram a TV, if that's the right terms. I mean, I am like not from this, I'm in a very different world. And I've been locked out twice recently at night. It's really disturbing. Scary position.
The community living campaign has a weekly tech session on Zoom, and they'll
Cool.
do phones or anything like that, so you can check their site for what day.
Okay, thanks a lot.
What's that called, Roger? The Community Living Campaign?
Yes, that somebody just mentioned earlier.
Yes, it's in the resource guide.
Yes.
Oh, great.
It's in the resource guide, and if you go to their website and put /events, it shows all the things they have throughout the week. And on Friday is when they have this tech support, and you can ask any question, but they have a lot of other things. Of course, you have to be able to get on to Zoom, especially if you need help to want to show something. Doing it by phone, it might be a little more difficult.
I can use a computer. I don't know how to use this smartphone. I can Zoom and Google and email and all that. I just don't know the smartphone.
Yeah. sfcommunityliving.org/events, EVENTS, and go to that website, and you'll see a lot of things.
Website and a phone number in the chat. You can, if you don't know how to visit the website, then go to call the phone number. I put in the chat.
Yeah, it's right there. David Elliott Lewis.
Hello, Art.
Thank you.
Sid wants to mail you the membership fee, the check, and he needs your postal address.
The postal address for the Gray Panthers?
Yeah.
Oh, it's my address, 2190 Washington.
Right in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat, yeah. And another idea
Do you want one?
could be.
I'll put it in.
Okay, getting a flip phone and instead of a smartphone to simplify your life. I know my wife was devoted to. She still has a flip phone. That's the one she uses. She was a reluctant adopter of even the flip phone, but at least keeps things simple. And
I have a flip. I had a flip phone and it died basically. And when I went in to get another one, he said, "Well, there's so much new learning with the new flip phone. Why don't you just go to the smart?" Which I didn't want to do till New Year because my life. I have threats from my landlord. I didn't want to do the new learning till next New Year, and but it was like $150 phone for $39, and I didn't know it'd be this hard, and it's probably great in the future, but in the meantime, it's like totally handicapping me.
yeah, might be worth getting a flip phone anyway, no matter, even if you did.
Well, I already invested in trying to make the old phone work, that whatever money that was, and now I've invested in the smartphone, and now I have, it's pretty, not very useful. The person tried to teach me, but it was closing time at the Metro store.
Yeah.
And you can't reach them by phone.
Yeah.
I think that
It's great, but I don't know how to use it.
Does anybody know if the San Francisco Public Library is still offering assistance in terms of information? Because the library used to be a great resource for all kinds of things, including.
I was there all the time. I stayed near there, and I was there probably several times a week. But yeah, that's just books at the door now.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments or
I want to
answers?
I want to make the suggestion that the important thing to do trying to learn the technology is to get a vocabulary and know the names of things, because without it, you just keep swimming underwater. But if you have the names, you can communicate about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
This is David. So I'm self-taught on a lot of technology, including self-taught in computer programming. And the way I taught myself is by just getting manuals. I mean physically printed books, manuals. You can still get them or you can download them. And I read them patiently and slowly and tediously, and it was not easy. It's tedious to read tech manuals. But if you read it and you're patient with it, it's all logical and you can understand it. And there's manuals for how to use your phones, how to use smartphones, and how to get started. And maybe if you don't know how to download it, somebody can help you download it and print it out, or you can buy it. You can buy it or get it from the library. But there are a lot of documentation already printed out. And if you patiently read it, you can learn a lot. So
Well, they don't print, they don't give you the manual with your new phone anymore. So that was a disappointment. It's the box has almost nothing in it. But I can try online to find that. Thanks, David.
If you
There's
put
also
the
a
name of your
lot.
phone in.
Oh, go ahead.
There's also a lot of information on YouTube.
Yeah,
that'll take you through a step by step, and then you can rewind it if it's going too fast, and you can follow along with it. That has some very basic information about how to use some of this technology.
Good suggestion.
Lois had a great suggestion. Google your problem, and Google has an answer just about everything. So if you're having a specific problem, try asking the question of Google.
Great.
Does
Thank you.
anybody have any other ideas about how to avert loneliness? One of my favorite ones is to go for a walk with a friend with social distance. And you can be out, it's very healthy to be outside and get away from your home environment or being inside all the time, and also have some social interaction at a safe distance. Are there any other ideas for how to avert loneliness? I mean, the resource guide would be helpful, of course.
I found a writing group. It's not, it's called Life Story something. It seems to be connected to like some New York public library. And I was interested in the teacher who's a creative writing teacher. And it's Mondays at noon, and I get emails from them. I'm not always able to join, but it's fairly small, and there's writing prompts, and that's been really great.
Where do you find that? Where do you find that group?
Oh, well, I'm kind of an information junkie, so I get endless things that I sign up for.
How would one of us find it?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I can forward an email maybe.
Thank you.
But when the chat closes, I mean, I wish I could save it so I can follow up on things. But when meetings end, the chat disappears. So
well, I'll send you the chat if you send me an email.
Oh yeah, if anybody's interested, and if they send it to Art maybe, and then when I find it, then I could like pass along to you, and you know how to do group mail. See, I don't know how to do things like that technologically, send it to a bunch of people. But if people send it to Art or the meeting or the Gray Panthers, and then when I find my email, I'll send you one, and then you'll have that contact information.
Thanks,
I can do
Denise.
that. Great.
Okay, anybody else got any questions, comments, or answers?
I see that
Ideas?
Alice put in that there's a poem a day at the library website.
Thank you.
That connects.
And Marilee, you had something?
Yeah, let's see, is that, this may be off topic a little bit, but I was wondering if anybody is working on the executive order N1419. And I can just read you one of the whereases. This is on aging, and this is Newsom's executive order. So I was just wondering, it has to do with long-term care programs. It has to do with just the impact of different programs on seniors. And it recommends that the agencies under his executive authority cooperate in the implementation of the order. And it's requested that entities of state government not under his direct executive order assist in the implementation as necessary. So it's quite an executive order, and I was just hoping that maybe somebody was looking at this and keeping the state, or at least addressing the state's accountability in terms of this particular executive order.
It relates.
So,
to
are you
long-term care.
familiar with it?
Michael, have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. Is there a title to it?
Yeah, it's Executive Order N-14-19.
What's it dated?
You know, I don't know the date. Wait a minute. Let me see if there's a date on this. No, I don't have a date on this thing. But what was recorded is, let me see. I'm looking at where it's.
I wonder how
Right.
it connects with the master plan on aging.
That's it. This is part of the master plan. This is the master plan on
Master
aging.
plan on aging will come out in the recommendations come out in January.
All right. So how can we get in touch with? How can you get involved in that agency or that committee?
They just held a lot of hearings about it, right?
Hearings are done.
Some of us have been involved in those. Kara is a good source of information about that effort, and Michael Lyon's a good source. He was very involved, and several of the Gray Panther networks testified when they had
Here's a
public
draft
hearings.
of the recommendations.
What did you say about the recommendations?
I think that Kara put out a draft of the recommendations.
Are they officially to be released in January?
I said a
Well,
draft.
Really?
That's all.
There was in this whole master plan thing, there was a committee that was particularly important on it called a stakeholders advisory committee it was composed of organizations that are advocates for seniors and people with disabilities and for the workers, the domestic workers who provide this care. And they came out with fantastic recommendations. They were very active in opposing nursing homes getting immunity for COVID deaths that happen within their facilities. They were very active on trying to make sure that the state's guidelines on who gets care if facilities get overwhelmed, make sure there's no discrimination involved in that. So this stakeholders group was a great group, and it came out with recommendations. But that's different, David, from what you're saying.
No, I'm saying I thought that Kara put out what the draft was. I thought they shared it.
I will look at. Marilee, can
Right
you put your email address in the chat?
All right, now I have to be humble and tell you the truth. I don't know how to put something in the chat. I mean, that's when I'm really bad.
All you have to do is go to the bottom of your screen where it says chat.
Yeah.
Click on that icon.
Right, I did that.
And then a rectangle should appear to your right.
Right, it did, yes.
Then if you look at if it's in blue, it'll highlight everyone or somebody's name. And then there's a space below that where you can write something. You could try testing it, like write in test.
Okay, all right, okay. I think I got it, all right.
Here you go, one more power user.
People helping people through better.
All right, what did you want, Michael? You wanted
your email address.
Okay, all right.
So related to that, now there was a lot of talk about rationing care for COVID earlier in the year, and now we're actually at that rubber meets the road point where they're having to make these decisions. What has there been any developments with that? Anybody who might know?
On rationing of care or too many people.
Resource code, yeah. If someone's in the hospital,
and ICUs filling up.
Yeah, I mean, so we're at that point where that's the actual reality, and so
those responsible in some areas of California, I would think they were creating temporary extra capacity, like using spaces that are like parking garages to set up, extra ICU units or whatever,
Yeah.
they've had plenty of time to think about this. I bet some counties and regions, probably the state of California has some answers on this.
I think there are several things going on. First, SBA and the disability rights community is working on it as a project. And so they're constantly working on it. But I've seen that in some places, it's been reported on the news, they're rationing the care from the front end by they aren't admitting people. It's not that they're not giving them the care and letting them die, but they're either not admitting them. So there's two ends to the rationing of the care. One is access, the other is denial. And I think it's actually happening in some places around the country. They don't call it ration care, so you don't see it on the news as that, but that's what it is. Triage.
Triage, right, thank you. So, I
Well,
heard
the
other
state,
places-
the state did come up with California guidelines, and SDA and the disability community all had input into that, because what they came up with at first was pretty bad. And SDA, it does continue to have a focus on care rationing. As a matter of fact, they have a meeting this afternoon after this meeting. And one of the things they're trying to do now is to focus locally and find out from individual hospitals what their guidelines are. So at least you have the information, you can work from there.
Yeah, the state guidelines were improved through a lot of good advocacy, but we don't know the individual hospitals. We're just trying to find out, even our local hospitals here, Kaiser, UC, and
Sutter.
We're not finding, we're questioning whether they even have guidelines and whether they are using the state guidelines.
Right.
And
Which is what we want.
to find this out.
Yeah, we want them to be using the state guidelines.
Yeah.
Because they've been improved so much thanks to us.
We are coming up on about 9 minutes left until 3. We probably should ask if there are any announcements. If anybody has any announcements to make. I mean, just now there was essentially an announcement made about a meeting this afternoon. Kiki, do you have more information about that meeting?
Well, there was an email that went out.
I mean, it's literally in 5 minutes. So, and you have to get the link and all.
It's a Zoom meeting, right?
Yeah, it's an SDA meeting. Yeah.
Oh, SDA. And is that to be?
Carmen put something in the chat box, 4 to 5:15. Is that the meeting? Virtual town hall?
No, I don't think, I think it's, I thought it was 3 o'clock.
I think it's starting at 3.
Yeah.
Let me look and see. Let me look through the
There are
email.
several people here who are well connected to SDA, so Michael's one of them, and he's going to look. And then if it's something that people are interested in, he could put it in the chat, or you could contact Michael or Kiki or Betty.
Mhm.
And are there any other announcements?
I was just gonna say on those writing workshops, the community living campaign has several, and people can check that to see what they like too.
Okay.
Did we get?
Yeah, it is starting at 3.
Did we get Art's address into the chat box?
Okay. You want my? Okay, I'll put it in there.
Okay.
Oh,
Michael,
okay. Yes.
page 5 to 9 of the CARA of the CARA board meeting notes is all about the master plan on aging.
Okay, thank you.
Pages 5 through 9 of the the board retreat notes.
Art, can you put
Yeah,
in your?
I'll put my address. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I have an announcement as I'm typing about Does anybody first, this is relevant to that announcement. Does anybody know if there's been a deal made in Congress on the COVID relief economic package? Because they were debating, they had separated it out into two different.
No, sorry, they're still arguing.
Okay, in that case, I have something I can send to anybody who wants it. I haven't really looked at it carefully yet, but the National Council of Gray Panther Networks has put out an alert with a phone number to Washington, D.C. to call and ask or demand your members of Congress that they not give a release of liability protection through this bill to nursing homes and long-term care facilities.
Yes.
Because some of those are corporate, many of those are corporate, they make hand over fist money, and they want to be held harmless if people want to sue them for damages, like allowing people to die through serving their bottom line versus serving their residents.
What is that bill again, Art?
It's the COVID relief negotiations in Washington right now. And I have access to an announcement that will give you all the information. I could send it to you. I haven't got it ready to put in the chat or anything, but I can make it available to anybody who wants it.
Like the meat processing plant.
Well, actually, this is focused on the nursing home industry and long-term care facilities in particular. This is a demand by the Gray Panthers that they not allow these caregivers, these corporate nursing home facilities and long-term care facilities to be held harmless for the damage that they do as part of the negotiations for the economic relief package that are going on right now.
For people who are interested in the care rationing meeting at 3 o'clock, I put the Zoom link in the chat.
Yeah, I put it in also with the agenda. It's above where Michael. I think,
Oh,
Michael, you may have one digit missing. Oh, I see. The 6 went on the next line. Okay. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. That's the link. The meeting starts at 3.
Which is 4 minutes from now. And I just put my address in the chat. If anybody wants to contact me, send me something. If you want to send a check for $30 because you're joining CARA, you can send it to that address.
You know, the zip code is 94108.
No, it's 9.
9. Oh, you see that?
Yeah, it's my zip code. Yeah, it's the one I always use, and it's the one that works.
Michael Light said 108. Okay, 109.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh. So we're getting down to the last few minutes, and I want to thank everybody for coming, but there's still time for any comments, questions, or announcements.
Art, 2 things. But one, I put my name in my email.
Okay, go ahead, Marilyn.
I don't know how to make it stay there. I mean,
you have to hit return once you put it in. That sort of locks it in or sends it.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then the second thing was, as I said, my concern is what is going to happen when COVID, fortunately, is under control and people are able to gather again. What's going to happen with all these sites that have been closed down for seniors? What are the seniors going to do? Where are they going to go, and how are they going to be serviced? So I'm very concerned about that. So is there anybody working on that, or is there anybody?
Well, can I jump in here?
Yes.
This is Kiki on the board. The plan is for January's meeting to get some folks who can help us to understand how the city is going to handle senior programming given the financial situation we're in. So hopefully we will have a better sense of what they're thinking, and then we can decide what we need to do about it in January, or starting in January.
Thank you,
Okay,
Kiki.
thank you.
So that will be the third Tuesday in January, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
I don't have a January calendar, so I don't know what.
Well, let me look.
It's easy to find, online, or just remember it's the third. And we'll have an announcement. If you connect with us, then you'll start to get our, emails that will announce it ahead of time. So you'll be notified. The information will come right to you.
And it is the third Tuesday at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
And the third Tuesday of January is
It's the 19th.
That's right, the 19th.
So the day before Inauguration Day.
Yeah. We can start partying early.
Right.
Okay, guys, next meeting at 3. Gotta go.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Happy holidays.
Marilee,
same to you.
I'm sorry, I can't find your email in the chat.
Yeah, he said press return. It's not return, it's enter.
No, it's up there. I can see it. It's underneath privately. I don't understand why.
You know what? You have to make sure that you send it to everybody. There's an everyone button, and there's a individual button.
Privately.
All right, what's the everyone button? Where is that?
At the top
of that list.
At the very top of the list.
At the top of the list?
Yeah.
Click off privately, click on the privately, and then you'll get the whole list. Go to the top and hit everybody.
Yeah.
Or hit Michael Lyon.
Or everyone.
I'm just laughing through my tears. Wait a minute.
Okay, Marilee, do you see the blue box that says, or the box that has someone's name in it?
At the bottom.
Yeah.
Who did you send it to?
No, I mean, that name was just there. Okay, wait a minute.
You can change it to
What name
everyone.
was it?
Yeah.
Click on it.
All right.
Art.
Oh, I see. Okay, I
Send it
see.
to Art.
All right, now I have to put it in again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do it now. Type
Okay.
message here.
All right, I'll put it in again.
Art, can I make an announcement?
Yes.
Oh, this is Denise, and yes, I would like to do some Christmas caroling, and there's a group called Beatles Choir that used to sing monthly at Laguna Honda, but we can't get in anymore, of course. And anyway, I would love to sing on the streets, especially where people are outdoors, like Tenderloin, maybe south of Market. Anyway, and I put my email in the chat. One of the first times it worked because I didn't know how to press enter. I was wondering why my chat isn't entering because I didn't press that button. But
Another
anyway,
power user.
hit return and it worked. So anyway, if anybody would be interested in doing some Christmas caroling on the streets of the city, and in Puerto Rico, they don't stop at Christmas. They sing until some people sing at least until February, definitely past Epiphany, January 6th. But anyway, yeah, so we have family there and I love it. And I haven't been there at the right time of year, but it's called Paranda. And anyway, so if you'd like to sing or play instruments or anything like that, you can reach me through the email on the chat. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, it's a little bit after 3. I'll hang in for a while longer, but I think we're going to end the meeting officially now. If you have something you want to put into or get out of the chat, do so now. And if you want to save the chat, there's a little rectangle with rounded corners with 3 dots in it. You click on that, and then you go up to the drop up menu or drop down menu and click on Save Chat, and the chat that will show it's saved. Or you can highlight everything or anything you want in the chat and paste it into an email, and you can save it that way.
And then it will say show in Finder. When you save the chat, it says chat saved, show in Finder. So if you click on that, then you'll see where it ended up on your computer.
How do you see show in Finder? I can't see
You
that.
have to save chat. You have to save the chat first, and then a message pops up right above it. Chat saved, show in Finder.
Yeah.
Show and folder.
Show in folder.
Up above it.
Right up above the
Click Save Chat.
Okay.
Turns blue.
Right.
Save Chat turns blue, so click it.
Save chat, and then it will say chat saved, show in Finder or folder, I guess is alternate.
Just up above it in a sort of gray band.
Yeah, good.
And there's some creative Christmas carols from Kara. I think they sent them out last Thursday or Friday for their Friday sing-along. They've taken the usual Christmas carols and put creative wording to them to make them relevant to today.
Where do you get that?
I guess from me, because I can send it to you, or you can contact Kara and Jody Reed or anybody at Kara. If you send an email to Kara, they will probably send it to you.
Okay.
Maybe they even have it posted on their website. Who knows?
Well, thanks everybody for coming today.
Yeah.
Would you like to be on the board of San Francisco Gray Panthers? The nominations are open, and so you can let Art know if you'd be interested in sort of guiding the next year of the Gray Panthers and working on great programs like this and actions like the one you saw in the slideshow. Bye.
Right. No, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you, Marilee, and thank you, Anne, for your contribution for helping me today.
Yep, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye. Have a good